Before HIV happens to you, you think I'm too pretty for it. Always no it's bahlangane and the T's cross. It's not for me, you know. Then the HIV has no status. It knows no boundaries in terms of education and so forth. Sonke nje siyalingana lapha ka HIV. We live in a world where we haven't balanced izinto kahle. But also, I think these are conversations to have, you know. How do we move from the bedroom to the boardroom without us having a problem as society? How do we take our men along with us? Because I think another thing that is an issue amongst the men that is problematic. Kufika ama-fundings amaningi zabo ezo-empower umuntu wesifazane, but sashiya abantu besilisa bethu ngemuva, and umuntu wesilisa akasazi kamenze njani lo muntu empowered, akakwazi ukudila naye. Lo muntu wesifazane who's earning more than him akamazi ukuthi uzodila naye kanjani, akazi ukuthi lo muntu wesifazane osenza ama-decisions when culture and religion dictates that he's the decision maker. What I preach to myself every day is that forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for days you thought you weren't good enough. Forgive yourself for thinking God is not good enough. Forgive yourself for thinking that when things happen to you, they only just happen to you. Things happen to other people as well, you know. To just lead people. I'm a Moses of my time, you know, I'm an Esther of my time. I take that, I don't take that for granted. But I also know that it's not by chance. I've worked hard. I've taken leaves. I've prayed hard. No, politics is us implementing policies and trying to make impilo zabantu better. Politics is not the corruptness that we've viewed it to be. It is literally to try and make a better life for all humans and all beings, and that's what I strive for. You know, politics is about making sure that we get to an understanding. But what happens in society says in our own politics must intervene so that sikwazi ukuphilisa.
Sanibonani, hello, hi, and welcome to the Top Woman Podcast, a show where we take behind the look scenes into impactful women and the changes they continue to make for our community. Today, I am sitting with a beautiful young lady, I'll say, but the work she has done is beyond her years. She's an activist, she's a socialist, and more than anything, she is a lover of life and her community. So Simphiwe Gumede, how are you? I'm great. So I want to find, before we start anything else, I want to find, you're a mom. Outside of the politics, out of business, out of everything that you've done, how do you think your kids would describe you?
My kids would describe their mom as powerful. My kids would describe their mom as determined. My kids would describe their mom as funny. I'm very funny. I've got dry humor. My kids would describe their mom as independent. I'm a very independent person. But I think because you're asking my kids to describe me, mama otitayo. I want things in place. I want my kids to grow up knowing umthetho. Yeah.
I love that you mention having things in place. And when you see your life's journey, I feel like things being organized is very important to you.
Yeah.
What does things being organized mean to you? And how do you deal, because you deal with people as well. Unfortunately, you can't always put them into order and have everything organized. But how do you deal with that and when things kind of fall apart?
Okay. With people, because I love being organized. abantu abakaNkulunkulu zami, you know. So abantu, when I got into my job, the first thing I did, I prayed. I prayed for wisdom. Njengonkosi uSolomon, ukuthi Nkosi, give me wisdom to lead your people so that I can get the organization that I want from people. Like when you're speaking about the organization with people, you ukhuluma ngokuthi umuntu afike abike inkinga yakhe, mhla uzomnika feedback understand futhi ni understand. What on my day-to-day basis, I love ukuba organized because I do a lot of things with my life. So basically, I need to know from being a mom, from being the politician, from being umfundisi, where do I place it on a day-to-day basis? Because I still need to be there for abantu on a spiritual level. I still need to be there for my kids. I still need to be a daughter. I still need to be a sister. So I need to organize that. Sometimes it falls apart. I panic. I like being on time, you know. Doesn't happen always. But I panic. And then I do a USA. And then I work with what I have. Yeah.
So I like Sisa Kulumala. I love the busa.
Yeah.
on that tip, I just want to find out, okay, here's now, we know you. You spunky, you fun, jail, the life of the party, the life of life, you know. But I want to find out, who is Simphiwe outside of those moments in front of us? Like you said, you're a leader. So spiritually, that's training, you know. You're in politics with everything happening in the world, not just in the country. That's training. You in the media, you see the things that people are saying. So when you are alone, how do you deal with those feelings? And what's another side of you that people don't see? Because I can't imagine you panicking. Like, you're so stoic in the way you move and do things. So I'm imagining you running around and then saying, Wusa.
You know, I can't really explain myself. I think every person, every 2-3 years, you go on a self-discovery. You discover, oh, okay. And as years pass by, I think you realize I'm not the Zam I was 5 years back. But one thing I am, in front of people, I'm an extrovert. But when I'm home, I'm an introvert. I like quietness. I love my peace. I love my Bible. I love my kids. We are funny with my kids, you know. So the things you don't know is that I am actually a quiet person in my space. I pray a lot. I'm a woman who highly depends on God. Akukho kwami ngaphandle kaNkulunkulu. Akukho futhi engikwenza ngeknowledge yami. So I'm that person. I'm a stern person. I stand by values and my principles. You know. So yeah, I'm that person. I change every now and then. You won't find the same simple. I think I also accommodate spaces, you know. I also accommodate personalities because you can't, when, especially as a leader, I can't go in as umuntu osindisiwe, maybe in a political space too much because they won't find me, you know. So yeah.
Okay, I get that, and I love the stillness of it. I think that's something I wish, and I'm sure the viewers at home would wish, because life is so chaotic.
Yeah.
Right now, there's just so many moving parts, and sometimes we forget to be still.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And while you're talking about, I can just imagine you at home with your kids, you know. And I think those are, with the work you do and your workload, those kind of are like stolen moments.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I feel like you are the mother to your children, but you're also a mother to the world. How has that affected them, knowing that they could be walking with the streets and everybody will come, mama, mama, you know? Has there been loss to them, saying that I don't get to spend as much time with my mom? How do you, what's your thoughts on that?
My kids may have sacrificed a lot. They've sacrificed their mother a lot. I'll make an example with my last born. With my last born, I was in hospital, ngangigula, but so I received a call. AIT, organization ethile, interview. It was a telephonic interview, and I was interviewed. But ngasho ukuthi ngisesibhedlela, by the way, ngenzela ukuthi mabezwe umsindo and stuff, ngisesibhedlela. Uzokhopha? Yes, ngizokhopha. By Friday ngiphuma esibhedlela naye umntwana, I got a call, I'm hired. So next week I need to be in Durban, sign a contract. On a Friday, I needed to fly to Joburg for training for about 2-3 weeks. So even if inganzami, the last born foot, my quality, mommy, I need you. And then so my kids have sacrificed a lot, but they know the sacrifices. Because I've got matured children. Even I'll make also an example that, ngathi mangipuma as an HIV positive person, my firstborn someone said, or a kid at school said, and she was mature enough to say, well, at least ngiyamazi mina uma ukuthi HIV positive, and by the way so my kids have sacrificed, but also they've learned independence. My kids have learned ukwazi ukusupportana bebodwa. My kids have learned ukwazi ukukhuliswa abanye abantu. So even if I die today, ngiyazi ukuthi ezami ingane zizokwazi ukukhuliswa abanye abantu zingenankinga, because I've leaned on so many people, comrades, my parents, my relatives, ukwazi ukukhulisa abantwana bami. Yeah.
Oh, I being a mom is difficult enough, and I can't imagine a mom in your field, in your space, because like we said, you are in the public eye.
Yeah.
You've had people fight, because you're in politics.
Yeah.
So it gets dirty.
Yeah.
It gets to a point where people they're not fighting your party. They're fighting your party, but they're fighting your party through you. And it gets personal, and it gets, Do you think the kids now understand that there's mom at home, and what people sometimes say, it's not that they're attacking mom or they're attacking us, it's the space that she's in? Do you think they've seen you fight? Do they now understand there's a difference between the two fights, or is it a personal attack to them each time?
I think because my kids have always understood my strength, and political party engigion bakule ngigionves. I got my kids ngiseskoleni, and I was somewhat in politics then a bit. And I wasn't too attached, but they grew up in a sense where politics was really part of my life. Activism was really part of my life. Akukho akaze kube intense kangako, but it's always been, we share our mom with others. We share our mom with her work. Fortunately enough, I think I've not in a space where I've really been in danger politically. I've not been in a space where the insults were that bad. You deal with attitudes here and there, things that are manageable, but nothing that is too intense that we can't sit down and I can't explain to my family. Yeah.
And with raising daughters, and in this society, that we're in. It's so difficult. There's so many outside pressures, everything. Is there a conversation, and you're raising daughters as well, you know? That's a scary J. I know how
I even have a granddaughter now.
At this point. Go.
Yes.
So are there any conversations that you feel that you still need to have with them about life in general? Or do you, because obviously a mother's job is never finished. We used to make a joke that as a mom, even if you were to pass on the other side, somebody will still pass that to you and say, Mama, I need you. So there's never resting as a mom. Do you think there's still conversations that you'd want to have with your daughters that you've avoided?
Nothing that I've avoided. I have adult children, 2 of them who are 21 and 22. On a day-to-day basis, we have conversations, and I avoid nothing. With my little one, she's not really interested in conversations. So I think she learns through the older ones, you know, but she's not interested in conversations. With the eldest ones, I don't think there are conversations we've avoided. I've always tried being open with my kids because I don't want my kids to grow up in a space where they don't know. They are naive. I don't want my kids to grow up in a space where they assume, you know. I want my kids to know. The first thing I want them to know is that God is love. God is everything. The second thing I want them to know is, even if I die today, Zama, I love them wholeheartedly. I don't want them to question that. And so, but with conversations, we always have conversations, you know, as tough as they are, because I don't want my kids to assume. Okay.
And you speak about tough conversations, and I feel like you're the type of woman who attacks problems head on and deals with them. And you mentioned and how your daughters dealt with people trying to be conflicted with how positively you live your life. And I want to touch on to that that disclosure process of you saying living as an HIV positive woman. But I want to take it back, because I think somebody will see you now and be like, oh, you know, I just want to find out, from the time you found out, you coming into the hospital or the doctor or whatever the case may be, how, like, take me through it. Yeah.
I remember I was in an abusive relationship. Nginalo muntu thandana naye or abusive usangithelele nge-HIV. Okay, how it started, how I found out, Ukele said to me, Simi, have you ever uqinile go check impilo yakho, you know? I was like, what for? You know, like, you know, the darkney to face of hearts, and I'm like, gazus bim, you know, at no, check impilo yakho. So I went and I did the test. Okay, lying test zama, why in king? Because I kept saying, I'll pin and pin, you know. Because before HIV happens to you, you think I'm too pretty for it. Oh, why is no eat by and the T's crossed? It's not for me, you know. Then the HIV has no status. It knows no boundaries in terms of education and so forth. So HIV. So when I got the news, the first thing I went Kukai and I said, to an HIV positive. Remember, this is an abusive person. He wanted to belittle me as possible. His first words were, oh, well, okay, all right. So I couldn't deal with him and myself. I had to deal with self. Firstly, I wanted to die because I didn't know ukuthi ngizophila kanjani ngugelo, you know, ola usazi, you know, like ekhaya ko right, or yabo ngizophila kanjani. And my first thing was, yo, sebengithatha sebengisa ngaphandle, sengigula sengine-AIDS. And unfortunately or fortunately, God said, you are going nowhere. And you're going to stay this course through. In fact, you are going to be the Messiah in all of this. So I started my work as an HIV activist, and I went to anything that could listen, anyone that could listen. I went to churches and I told them about my status, how I'm living, how medication helps me.
Yes.
But being HIV positive was, when you look at it on a positive side, was a way to come back and love Simphiwe. I didn't love Simphiwe. I didn't value Simphiwe. I didn't honor Simphiwe. I didn't see her food. It was a way of think, give me you know? Oh, okay, you know? So I think it was self-discovery for me. And I loved that about that. And I went out and I took my lemons and I made them to lemonade. I don't think, Zama, I would be where I am, even politically, if I wasn't HIV positive.
That is definitely making lemonade out of lemons. But simply, I need to understand, like, here's the decision to say, because I can understand, even now, I know times have changed. So now a person openly living with HIV is more societally normal or accepted, let's say that.
Yeah.
Then at that time when you disclosed, at which point did you say to yourself that I am going to be open about it? Because you could have kept quiet, you know? You could have and continue. Your partner says, because you didn't even have that support or that accountability from your partner, you know? So from you to say, okay, this is my situation right now. This person obviously out, I'm dealing with myself. And at the same time, you say, do you know what? This is the decision, or this is what is happening in my life right now. But I'm not going to hide in the corner. I'm going to stand on top of the mountains and say, Kuyapileka. What was your thought process on saying, I'm not going to keep quiet about it, but I'm going to spread the message of awareness?
I don't remember what I said to myself. But I know that there's a TV station that is around that I think they assisted me a lot, where I was a presenter and producer. At the time, I don't remember the guy, who was running that local TV station. I came in and I said, I want to have a TV show, and Yaban Besfazan. And he said, well, we have that, you know. And I tried to walk away. He says, I didn't say walk away. I'm now wanting you to give me another idea of what else you can do here, because I like you, like your attitude. And I thought, well, I have this HIV that I want to heal from. Maybe it would be good that I told this story. And I think that was, but I didn't quite, and I'm not the person here who would sit and think, should I? I'm the person that says, kunomfulala. Let's just jump and see what happens. I'm that girl. Oguti, should I jump? What's going to happen? Well, whatever is to happen is to happen. Let's jump. So I took that decision there. But it wasn't a decision of, I'm going to think about it. Let's go change the world. I did it a jump at a time.
And you can imagine jumping into the deep end, and you're swimming with the sharks and you're winning. You're at the end of
I'm the man.
Yeah. You know, I'm captivated by your story. Very rarely do you get an opportunity to sit with someone and actually understand the thought process, because you'll just see the activist, but you're not understanding the human nature for you to say, because stigma will always be there. The difficulty is making people understand, and you've gone through something that society or the world has deemed a death sentence. and you've lived beautifully so. You've slayed life, and you continue to educate others about it. You know, do you have, obviously activism is no end goal. You know, there's not saying that in 10 years I'm gonna stop being an activist. You'll still be an activist. But with the work that you do with the HIV community and the societies associated with it, is there a certain thing that you say you still want to achieve in that field and that stigma that people might still have?
I want to achieve, because I'm not only an HIV activist, by the way, I'm also a human rights activist. I'm also gender equity activist. I want to achieve what Lillian Ngoyi said, when you rise with another woman. That's what I want to do on a day-to-day basis. I want to rise with all women. I want to rise with every little girl. I want some girl to say, I had low self-esteem until I met Umam Simphiwe, I met Simphiwe, and you know, I don't want my work to stop. There's no way. The world transforms, Anna, and HIV transforms, and we are still looking for the cure. You know, we are still looking for our young girls to not get HIV. We are still looking that our young boys, you know, don't hit our girls or kill our girls as much. So for until the world is quiet with those things, I'll always be fighting.
Thank you. So I think that on its own things deserves a thank you from us as the world, and a hug from society for standing up and talking about these things, because we might be in 2026. We might be years later, because I think you're diagnosed, if I'm not mistaken, if I've seen your stories, I've seen you speak up, it's been 15 years now. Yes, the world has changed, but there are still people who live in fear, who don't even think of getting better, who don't go to the clinic, who don't take their medications, because they're already in their minds have thought of it as a death sentence, you know. So I think as a society, having women like you, having people like you actively standing in front of us and say kuya pilega is definitely what the world needs to heal. You had a show, it was called HIV Today, you know, and you heard countless stories. You know, was there ever a time where you heard one story and you were clutching your pearls and you were shook by that story, and how did that story affect you?
There's no one story as such, but I think stories that really shook me and I went home drained are those of GBV. Like, GBV is the hardest thing to deal with, looking at it from afar and feeling it. I think it also triggered me a lot, Zama. You know, it triggered me from, you know, for a moment it would take me back. Kuloya guy, angshaya, wangshaya ngempama yangshaya so 360. Yaphinde yangishayisa omunye 360 40. So whenever, but I got worried when women spoke GBV. Ayisho nje ngathi Emilia sekuseni emintamba ngathi usayijwayele. That for me, it hurts, and it really touched me, and I wanted to change it, because we are normalizing GBV. You know, I've seen how even namanje, and you know, yazi ukuthi kuqala kwakuthi kulimele nje intombazane eyodwa kuthiwa nangu uzamudukile ubulewe ubani, and we'll march, even though I thought these marches do nothing for us. We'll march manje on a day-to-day basis. Like 3-4 women are killed. There's a page on Facebook that you look at nje there's always an RIP for women, killed by isoka. Yesterday I read isoka belimgqibe endlini, and we've just okay, there's no march, there's nothing, there's no organizations are quiet, we are just all quiet. So normal. And now I'm worried. So then it shook me, but now what is happening now shakes me more.
I think I want to quickly go back, and you said you're not just an HIV activist, but a human rights activist, and I think you are the best person to talk to about this, because more than anything, Simphiwe, as a woman, you have an issue that the society has a role for you. You need to be timid. You need to be in this space. You need to bow down. There's the word submissive, and everything like that. But you are in a space that's you're in a role. You're in a leadership role. And how do you balance being a leader, in society, but coming back home and finding your position as a woman? And is there such a thing as a position of women's umeluhoods? I say this because now we have a problem when we think about gender-based violence. There are certain people, like you said, it ends up being normal, that it's not just the physicality. I think that's another thing that worries me, because the physicality it starts with a slap, but it doesn't start there. It starts with the emotional, the psychological, and I think too many of us as young women as well ignore those red flags from the psychological and that, I'll say, brainwashing at that point. And then if they're lucky, when it gets to the physical side and maybe leave, but others still stay. How do you deal with that emotional and mental breakdown? Because other people don't want to talk about it because they have these positions in life, or they're trying to strive, or they don't even recognize that emotional abuse.
Yeah. Okay, for me, balancing the rights issue and the religion and the culture issues, for me, it's still very hard. Hence, I don't date even now. Okay. Because I believe dating is for marriage, Now, for me, I'm also a Christian. I must be led by a man. Now, that for me is a bit difficult, because in most of my time, I live in a world where there are rights. So, Ngizo, from 7 to 4:30, I write I'm equal to a man now. And then finding Buele Kaya, umyeni, and below. That's why I always, when I speak to young girls, and I say, umshado muhle, but it's not meant for all of us. Ama relationships mahle, but they're not meant for all of us. Fane uzi kale ukuthi ngingaphi, because ngizofika emzini yabantu ngifuna ukwenza lento engenza lapha emsebenzini epolitiki, yabo, ebese ngiba nenkinga. So my world, most of the time, I lead. I take decisions. I'm empowered, and I delegate. At home, I can't delegate, So we live in a world where we haven't balanced izinto kahle. But also, I think these are conversations to have, How do we move from the bedroom to the boardroom without us having a problem as society? How do we take our men along with us? Because I think another thing that is an issue amongst the men that is problematic. Kufika ama fundings amaningi zabo. empower umuntu wesifazane but sashiya abantu besilisa bethu ngemuva and umuntu wesilisa akasazi kamenze njani lo muntu empowered akakwazi ukudila naye lo muntu wesifazane who's earning more than him akamazi ukuthi uzodila naye kanjani akazi ukuthi lo muntu wesifazane osenza ama decisions when culture and religion dictates that he's the decision maker. So these are conversations we should have in society because Nami as a person, well, I'm human. I don't have all the answers now, but as a society, and see so that we have less of these gender issues. Yeah.
That's definitely true because what I'm also realizing is that we are growing that girl child. I think our mothers and our grandmothers, because they were so suppressed, is that when they were growing their girl child, it was, you're going to be bigger, you're going to be better. And you know. But nobody is saying to the boy child, you too grow as well, but also understand that she's growing, you know.
Yeah.
And what you saw your mother and father live, and you're going to expect it the same. She's different, so I definitely understand the sentiment that the boy child has been left.
And also, Zanamina, I grew up in a home. My father was present, and at some point, he went and he lived Ekai in Bigville, and to run his businesses. And most of the time, I was raised by my mom and his sisters, and her sisters, I mean. So leadership for me is female. You know, I've never ever been led by a man, and I don't know how that is like, you know. So so I always worry in a sense in relationships because some of the things I can't let go. I'm hands on. Because that's where I was raised. The woman is hands-on.
You're braver than most. I think more than anything, brave is one word to describe you. But I also think that you are not born brave. I don't think, you know, it's something either something happens in society to get you there, or maybe you instill it. What does bravery look like for you, and how did you get so brave in life?
I was curious. I'm a curious person by nature. But also, I'm the type of person, I think I did explain myself, who says, Husa, let's sleep. You know, let's not think about it. Let's do the leaping. You know, I don't think about a lot of things. I think, ooh, I've done it, you know, or sure, I'm in mess, you know. Either way, ngizolungisa sengiphakathi, you know. So I think it's a weakness. I think that I don't think about it. I just sleep, you know. I'm that woman that, you know, magliwa. I see uzama wakithi uyalo, you know, ngizoya empini kuqala bese ngibuza ukuthi bezama bekwenze njani lapha. You know, so that's my personality. So it's sometimes stupidity, but I call it bravery.
Love that. But one thing I just want to find out, going back with everything that you've done, you know, and the bravery and being as courageous and leaping first, asking later. You know, I suffer from something simply called imposter syndrome, where you've gotten into the room, you know, as much as it's something I'm working through, but it's something that still sticks to you. You've worked through all the years. You finally are in these rooms that you were praying for, that you were working hard for. And then you sometimes sit down and you're like, it's not that you don't belong, but you're shocked that you actually belong. And then for other people, it's a thing that ngihlezi no Simphiwe, ngihlezi no MEC, ngihlezi nabantu abakhulu. They've got this, they've achieved this, their assets, and I'm nowhere close to that, you know. With everything that you've done in your life? Do you ever find a moment where you're like, this is really happening? I have arrived. This is,
all the time.
all the time. And do you ever have that feeling that, I won't say you don't belong, but that fear that I've worked so hard to get myself into those rooms, and what's next?
I find myself in this room, where my political party has put me. It's an answered prayer. It's something I really don't take for granted. To just lead people. I'm a Moses of my time. I'm an Esther of my time. I don't take that for granted. But I also know that it's not by chance. I've worked hard. I've taken leaves. I've prayed hard. And like I said, I'm a very religious person. I know I did not qualify, but God said, do that, and I'm qualifying you too, So I've cried, I've kneeled, I've prayed, I've worked harder than most people sometimes. I'm a hard worker, I'm that person that says, let's work hard even on days I should be resting. I work hard because I want to take nothing for granted. I even being a counselor right now, it's 5 years now, but I wake up in awe as if I started yesterday. Like Emina Longos. I'm the Esther of my era. I'm leading God's people to the promised land because we still have not reached the promised land, and we are going there. Whether I see the promised land or not, but I was part of the journey to the promised land. And that for me will always be, let's click.
Okay. There's a saying to summarize everything you're saying, and as ukuluma, the first thing that came to mind is that God does not call the qualified.
Yeah.
He qualifies the called.
Yeah.
And your journey is fascinating for me, and more than anything, the fact that with everything that has gone on in your life, you are still a God-fearing woman. I'm Christian as well, and sometimes you have, I don't want to say issues or problems, but sometimes it gets so heavy and you say, God, why? We sometimes have, and we talk about it, it's whispers between us. Kodwa uNkulunkulu bese khona, ubekuphi uNkulunkulu kwenzeka lokhu, Do you ever have moments where you say, God, were you really there? Are you there? From finding out your status, why did you bring this man into my life? Why did I go through this? God, where were you? And to have gone through all this and actually be a better, I don't want to say bigger, but a better Christian than you were back then. Because I think with faith only grows, And how do you deal with that?
Funny you say that. Yesterday I was reading verse Mahubo 23. Lithi uthi David Nkosi ngithandazela ukuthi undlala itafula phambi kwezitha zami. Now uNkulunkulu mayindlala itafula phambi kwezitha zakho akanidlaleli wena zami. Undlalela izitha zakho not because ufuna ukutshengisa wena, ukutshengisa izitha zakho ukuthi angakudlalela wena kangcono, but ufuna ukutshengisa izitha zakho ukuthi lo uNkulunkulu wakho muhle kangakanani yena ngaba muhle kangakanani kubona izitha zakho njengoba indlalela itafula. So when things happen to me, I always say, yes, I do have moments, by the way, where I say, hayi kodwa ke Nkosi bandla
kuningi
yabona mawusucingiswa shaka lesizini ngikhiphe
leave me out,
ngikhiphe phoza yami, like then I get to understand I'm not an ordinary person. I'm chosen. I'm a servant. I'm the Esther of my era. So kunezinto nje ezokwenzeka kumina mhlawumbe a bit extra. Maybe uNkulunkulu is having a bit of humor. Maybe uNkulunkulu is having a bit of a lesson. Maybe uNkulunkulu, you know, but zizokwenzeka kumina because ngisebalazweni uNkulunkulu ufuna ukutshengisa amandla akhe ngami. And uNkulunkulu mayezosebenza ngawe, nowhere have I seen in the Bible ukuthi mayesebenza ngawe konke kuba mnandi zami. Nangu Mose again, you know, hey, waqale wabasenkingeni wawulahliwe, went through rejection, went through everything. Waseba uMosolitayo. Nangu Joseph waphikwa umndeni wakhe walahlwa. Nangu noJesu waphikwa aba. So no one has it easy. But uNkulunkulu, I've learned that kuneyithembiso eBhayibhelini uthi uNkulunkulu ngizokuthwala ngikutshathe, my favorite verse. And when I say uNkulunkulu wayimi, and then uNkulunkulu uyangikhumbuza ukuthi ngithe ngizokuthwala ngikutshathe, angiyaku ukushiya, angiyaku ukulahla. Athi uNkulunkulu ngikuzungezile phambili nasemuva ngase ngibeke isandla phezu kwakho. So why are you afraid? So I have moments like that, but they are like a split of a moment thing, and then I remember the promises. I remember who I am. I remember that I'm the princess of heaven. That it's not going to be easy. Akukho kimi kuzofika lula. You know, it's not even about me. So forgive endleleni, xolo endleleni abazokuxoba, because it's not about you. It's about the God that must show up.
He never said the weapons wouldn't
form. He said the weapons would form.
But they will
not hurt me. The parts will hurt.
But you preach, and I love, literally, and this is beautiful to witness, is that when you talk about your God, you blossom. Like there's this glow, that halo about you, and I can tell that this is something that you are very passionate about.
Yeah.
So I know every Sunday you're at the Mountain of God Church under Senior Pastor Umhlongo.
Yes.
You preach to the people, you talk to the people. But what do you preach to yourself? What wounds do you? Because I believe what I always say is that we've got 7 days in a week. The Sunday is the day where it's a restart of the week.
Yeah.
Everything that we every week, and then we start over. So you go to church, you listen to the pastor, you know, talk about God. You know, but do you preach to yourself? Are there any wounds that said, I don't need umfundisi ezongibambe ngibeke isandla lena idinga mina? You know, and what do you say in those moments?
I come from a background or a space where I dealt with a lot of rejection. I dealt with a space where I grew up in a space where my mother was strict, and I thought my mother did not love me. For the longest of time, I thought my mother did not love me. My favorite human being died when I was 17. That's my dad, you know. And when my dad died, a lot of other things happened in that year that, you know, some of them I can't talk about. But I then thought, like, why live? Why praise God? So what I preach to myself every day is that forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for days you thought you weren't good enough. Forgive yourself for thinking God is not good enough. Forgive yourself for thinking that when things happen to you, they only just happen to you. Things happen to other people as well, you know. So the forgiving journey for me was very long, because I also had to forgive my father for leaving very early. I had a lot of promises. I was my father's girl. And I think another thing is with dating become very difficult for me. Baba wami zama bekuthi mangithi umjita angikufuni lokhu kudliwayo la ekhaya. Athi ufunani ngithi ulimi mpimo dumisa imoto hamba siyofuna lolo limi. You know, if ngithi angifuni lento engigqokile ufuna ukuqhokana dumisa imoto. You know, so I grew up in that space, and 17 years wasn't enough for me with this guy, you know. So I also had to forgive him for leaving early. And then uzongishiya nala machita just emhlabeni azongitreat like
from iqanda to now,
you know, iqanda lekhutman to
Jazzy,
man, you know. So yeah, forgiveness is the biggest thing I had to preach to myself and letting go.
I love that it's a rotation. It's always, because imagine now this is years later, but those wounds still pick up. And I think sometimes people have that problem of realizing some issues come and fester from something, you know. And in order to heal, you need to know what the problem is. You need to know where the wounds were and how they were inflicted in order to heal and invite God into your life. Sister Simphiwe, I want to go back, and I can just imagine you now at work, because I can imagine you on the pulpit. Now I'm trying to imagine you as this fierce leader, where you're not serving me grace, where you're not serving me a hug, but you're serving me with resilience and passion and force. Let's go, let's start working. You know, you were in the exco in Umhlatuze, you know, and that was a very big leadership position. You know, how was it like behind those municipality walls, and how did you deal with the stress?
Being a woman and leading very powerful people. My political party, ngikhuluma mina ordinary councillors, you know, ngiwhip in you are leading abantu with diverse imqondo. They're very intelligent, you know, and most of them are men. So you are dealing with masculinity, masculinity, and you are dealing with intelligence. You are dealing with politicians. So you just have to be a step above, you know. But also, I must also commend the caucus that I led as a whip before I became an ESCO member. One of the things that we are taught in my political party is that we toe the line, is that we respect leadership. And they were able to do that. And they were able, irregardless that you're female or you're male. You know, I've seen with other political parties that it's very hard as a woman. So I always say that there's nothing in life you can do alone, you know. So I did it with them as a team. I rose as a woman leader with them as a team. Being mambe, izandla neengalo neenyawo and everything. You know, kuno mama I lead with, or I'm with in the ESCO, Umama Babegile. Umama Babegile is the type of person that says, when I you know, I'm young and sometimes I get excited with these things. And Umama Babegile will go, you know. So I'm blessed with such people, you know. I then lead with you know, it's a lot of people, you know. Councillor Mhlongo, Councillor Ndimande, they've got different personalities and they've got different lessons, you know, just a lot of councillors there. So you take a piece of each, you know, and you combine it in your leadership and you move forward.
What a journey it seems. I think just like I can imagine if we see in Parliament.
I receive.
But no, man, I want to find out. So this is a side note question. You know, it might be tricky, but if we're honest,
let's sleep
into it. You know, too many times we see the underside of politics, the negativity of it, and sometimes how politicians can be labeled as tricksters, as liars, as selling dreams. You know how you know it goes. But how do you move from that space, from people saying negative things? People in anger, people will say, hey, you know, you're not doing this for us. We want this, we demand this. Sometimes without understanding, it's not you personally. There's other things, you know, we can't deliver this because of this. But no, eyes on you, you know. We should first, ask later, kind of bad. Yeah. But now, how do you take all of that and say to yourself, I am now cleansing this so that on Sunday you're able to stand and preach as a woman of God and recluse the political heads with all the negativity that might come with it?
Okay. Wayethu mamncane wami ngisho intandane mntanami zahlula maroma. You know, so I can't rescue everything from my political party. How I joined this political party is that I knew it had principles and values that it stood by. I knew its mission, and its mission aligned with my own mission. Its principles aligned with my own principles. Its values aligned. My political party was built in a church where I believe ukuthi la xotshwa. Now we must always excuse kumina. I'm always able to tell apart isenzo sekazama nesenzo se-organization, you know. So someday we need to have a conversation ukuthi ngisho kuthiwa uzama wenze ini but fanele mayisenzile uzama simsuse ku-organization because ama-principles kazama nama-values kazama mhlawumbe awa-align newe-organization, and I'm still sitting in my political organization because I still believe it serves the same values and principles and visions and so forth that I share, and I build from that, and I build from the fact that it's still there to change lives. It's no different than my Sunday life or my religious life, where it's to change impilo zabantu. You know, uJesu lived ukushintsha impilo zabantu. My principles in life and mission in life ukushintsha impilo zabantu. And so is my political organization for 40 years prior to democracy. It's lived ukushintsha impilo zabantu, and that's where I stand with it. Now, ukuthi ke uzama esese ngoba ifike ngixakela isithi khona uSimphiwe webani phathi, but abalishi isonto aqhamuka kulona ukuthi usonta nasesontweni elubani yabo, whatever that person associates themselves, but kulibukwa le political part bese kuthiwa. So I think things of corruption kusuke kuyi individual choice yomuntu bese ngcolisa organization. But I do believe that what I believe as a religious person in my political party aligns for me.
I know, and I understand. So politics is definitely not what we think it is.
No,
you know?
Politics is us implementing policies and trying to make impilo zabantu better. Politics is not the corruptness that we've viewed it to be. It is literally to try and make a better life for all humans and all beings, and that's what I strive for. You know, politics is about making sure that we we get to an understanding. Uzama ukhuliswa ngenye indlela, ngikhuliswa ngenye indlela. But what happens in society, sesindawonye, politics must intervene so that sikwazi ukuphilisa.
One thing, to wrap up everything that we've said today, and in my understanding of Simphiwe, the woman behind the story, what would you say to the Simphiwe 15 years ago who thought her life was about to be over? And this is now the 15 years later, speaking to the 15 years before. What would you tell her life will be like?
Life is a roller coaster. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the lows as you enjoy the highs. Pray, love, live, forgive. Be the best version of yourself. Even when you're tired, show up and show off. Be true to who you are. Enjoy everything, even the mistakes.
Tears in my eyes. Thank you so much, Simphiwe. I've learned so much today. I thought I knew you. I think people watching this will think they know you. And today we just got an in-depth view of who you actually are, outside of the title, outside of the activism, but Simphiwe Gumede. Thank you so much for being with us. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Simphiwe Gumede, an activist, a woman in Bogotá. And today's story and journey was very, very different. We have learned, we nearly cried, and we've laughed. My name is King Metlo, and this is Top Woman. We out here at Namusa's BNB Namhlanje with the beautiful case that we've had, driven by Mid-Bay Rotors. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you.